Every Thursday, or pretty much every Thursday, Max Olson, senior college football writer for theathletic.com, joins us. Max, thanks for your time. I saw your note about some of the new additions, the Big 12, your marks, adding this person, this particular group, or this particular job. It does seem as if they are adding a lot of people, and a lot of it is towards just things that are new or trying to find new revenue.
Yeah, that's right. The announcement this morning was that they're partnering with Endeavor, with WME Sports and IMG Media on their global content and commercial strategy, which is a fancy way of saying they're going to be working with Endeavor a lot on these big decisions that are ahead of them, whether it's media rights, whether it's new revenue streams. And one thing I kind of highlighted in the release they put out this morning was that Endeavor is going to advise them on the use of sports wagering and NFTs. So I think it's a good hint to everybody that Brett Yormark, and I picked up on this from my first conversation with him at Big 12 Media Days, but this is a guy who's going to pursue making money in ways that we've not probably seen in the past in college athletics. He's got that different background, obviously, and so he's going to come in and I think probably try and push the boundaries here of ways that conferences can make money going forward.
Yeah, the sports wagering thing is interesting to me, Max, considering that the state that their office is in does not allow it yet.
That's right. The state that I'm calling you guys from doesn't either. Yeah, it's so we're not there yet. And when they say they want to, advise them on the use of NFTs, it feels like I can't tell. I don't know enough about it, but it seems like that market's not in the best shape here. So, but it's at the same time, like this is probably, and this is a departure from the way it was under Bob Bowlesby, and he understood that on his way out that. That the Big 12 board wanted to hire a deal maker, and certainly you're seeing that here in the past months. Brett Yormark making lots of additions to his staff, expanding his office, and taking them in some very different directions.
I'm just bummed that we missed the boat on any Max Olson themed NFTs potentially.
You don't know.
I don't know.
So far. Like I was joking with someone on Twitter this morning. Maybe you guys will see me in the Big 12 metaverse down the road here. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a whole new world. Max,
sure.
Last weekend was certainly eventful. I guess starting off and staying in the Big 12. Man, your pick, there's every game seemed like it had an interesting outcome, but I guess the biggest one was probably because of the ranking, K-State over Oklahoma, the fact that was in Norman, and how Adrian Martinez was just sensational. And you obviously know his game very well. What were your thoughts as you saw Kleiman and company run all over the Sooners?
Man, I want to hear Smokey's thoughts on watching prime Adrian Martinez going out and beating the top-ranked team in the Big 12.
You and I texted back and forth, and I can share that. I was thrilled for him. Now, Craig loves Oklahoma, Jennifer, Oklahoma family, side of that part of the family, but I was thrilled for Adrian Martinez.
I was too, and it's funny when you go back and watch the third and long run he had, that epic run, and even one of the touchdown runs he had, like he doesn't wear a mouthpiece. You can see the kid smiling as he's running with the ball here. Like I think you can tell he is just so much happier than he was for these past few years at Nebraska, when you have that whole burden of turning around a program and a failing coach and all that on your shoulders. It's just a different deal for him this year. And offensively, they were pretty conservative their first three games. It was nice to see them kind of let him let it rip. Just kind of go out and make plays and kind of show everything he can do. And so, what an impressive performance. And I don't think the sky's falling for Oklahoma by any means, but it is a reminder that, and I think you're seeing it right now with Miami and Florida and some of these other schools too. And obviously USC had a close game over the weekend. Like you got to remember, it's still year one. It's not going to be super consistent high level play every single week. You're still working through stuff. The head coach is still kind of trying to figure out how to push the right buttons with his team. And I think OU is going to be fine, but that was a pretty good welcome there for Brent Venables. Of this is how it's going to be week to week. Oklahoma's got to be really sharp or they could lose games.
I want you to do me one favor, Max. When you go back and watch the Martinez 3rd and 16 run that sealed the game, when he came and stepped up to start to run, if you'll notice, he kind of cupped the football, protected it. And that's usually when something would happen with him. A turnover, didn't protect the football. And I thought, again, that might be Chris Kleiman or Colin Klein, but I just thought that was a moment that I really noticed about him.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm watching that game with my wife, and she's a Nebraska grad too. And you kind of that nervousness just kind of sets in, right? When you're in that fourth quarter and it's like it's a one-score game, he's got the ball, and you're sort of like, you've just kind of been conditioned over these last 4 years of like, oh man, something bad's going to happen, right? Like you already are like expecting it, and it was so great to see him. I'm sure he even like didn't really quite know how to react to it, but it was what a great deal for that kid to have that kind of moment, and it's encouraging about maybe where things can go for K-State here the rest of the year.
Max Olson, theathletic.com on college football and 365 Sports.
Max, anything come out of the CFP meetings this week that interested you, or is it just that sounded to me like a lot of just informing us of here are what they have to work on?
Yeah, not too much. I didn't get a whole lot out of that. I mean, clearly there's a lot of logistics to work through, and I do think the conversation about home sites is going to be interesting here going forward because I'm the first year that we have that, whatever year that ends up being, those first couple of years, don't you guys think that opportunity to host that first round game in your home stadium is going to be such a big deal to people that almost those top four seeds are almost going to kind of feel bummed that they don't get that opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw what was the bowl chairman the other day who was fighting for the bowl games to actually be able to host. I think that's an awful. The whole reason the expanded playoff even seems fun for me, like 90% of it is those first round games being hosted on campus.
I agree, and so you wonder how much, like, will that stuff be kind of set in stone, or could that be kind of fluid those first few years of figuring out how well this works? And every home site's going to be different on that. You hope that there aren't some of these schools that are going to prefer to, hey, we don't want to play this at our home stadium, let's go play it in Indy or something like that if you're in the Big Ten. But no, I think that first year of that first round of games in home stadiums, and hopefully you do get some across the country where maybe there's some different weather elements and stuff. I just think it's just going to be a whole new offering to the sport that's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, Max, it's interesting on the bowls. I think that, I'm sure that a lot of them are afraid that the playoffs going to happen and undo them. I think if college football does it right, the bowls could see maybe a little bit of an enhancement here because you can mix them in with games that actually do matter. People might watch a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. And look, those guys they have to do their lobbying for their interests and stuff. And I understand that comes with it. But, I agree with you. And let's not forget one of the things that we're struggling with every December that you would hope improves in this landscape with a 12-team playoff is guys not opting out of those big games. I think hopefully maybe the tone changes a little bit there in terms of that decision-making process for guys who want to go pro or transfer or whatever to play in these games.
Max, the two highest-ranked teams right now in the Big 12 will match up this Saturday in Waco. This is the third meeting in the last 365 days between Oklahoma State and Baylor. Obviously, different teams from those two meetings a year ago. But I don't know quite what to make of Oklahoma State just yet. I know that they had the early struggle in the opener that wasn't as close as maybe the final score indicated, and then hadn't really played anybody since then. Baylor obviously got a big win last week on the road. Just kind of where do you see these teams entering Saturday?
Yeah, it was interesting talking to folks on the Iowa State side afterward. Their takeaway was they felt like Baylor's probably the team to beat just in the conference, just in terms of what they're working with up front. We knew that going into the year, obviously, but I think the way they were able to, disrupt things a little bit for Hunter Deckers was impressive, and it seems like they're starting to figure things out offensively, who to build this around. You guys would be surprised if it was a high-scoring game, right?
Yeah, our staff is picking, and we're all kind of putting out predictions. I haven't given mine yet because I'm trying to – that most everyone feels like that it might be. And I don't – I'm kind of against the grain from last year. Like Craig said, two different teams. What do you think?
I'm wondering if you guys are all picking this like 24-17, like that kind of same as last year, basically. But they are two different teams. But I do think it is going to be a good defensive chess match still. And I'm with you. I still don't quite know. Oklahoma State's in the top 10, and I'm not going to sit here and say they don't deserve to be, but we're going to find out a ton about them this week because I think, obviously Arizona State is not one of the best Power 5 teams in the country this year, and so that was their big test. Obviously, they were better in non-conference play this year than they were last year, but we're going to find out like kind of how is this Oklahoma State team, which I think offensively is going to just really be a lot more built around Spencer Sanders. I'm not saying their running backs are bad by any means, and we're going to see who steps up there. But this is a lot. This game is just as it was in Arlington last year when they didn't have Jalen Warren. It's going to be really on the shoulders of Spencer Sanders, and obviously Baylor was able to get him to turn it over 7 times in their matchups last season. So I'm sure he's extremely motivated and trying to play the best game of his career this weekend. And can Oklahoma State kind of put it all together here? This is their big test. We've seen it from Baylor. We've seen Baylor play 2 really good teams so far, and we kind of know what they're working towards. And this is a chance for Oklahoma State to kind of prove where they're at.
Yeah, Max, you asked that question about kind of what do we expect. I'm still kind of struggling with it because it's just a small spread in favor of Baylor, but the over-under is like 56.5. So that would lead you to believe that it's going to be like, 30-28 or, something along those lines, which is kind of hard to picture. So, yeah, I have no idea going into Saturday.
And I mean, they couldn't have been any closer than they were in Arlington. So, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be an interesting one, but especially because we're all kind of wrestling with this question. I think we probably talked about it last week too, of just like, I think we can all agree there's not a bad team out of these 10, but really who are the best teams out of the 10 in the league this year? This is going to be a week where I think we get a lot better sense of that. And we also get Oklahoma TCU, which is going to tell us a lot about TCU and how Oklahoma responds.
I think the other interesting one, Max, is ISU and Kansas. Because I mean, Kansas hasn't played anybody like Iowa State yet, but Iowa State hasn't necessarily even played anybody like Kansas. Baylor was a tough game, but the way that Kansas's offense is wide open, that's a hard game for me to put my thumb on.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few folks in Nebraska watching that game. What do you think, Smokey?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Probably making bold statements off of whoever wins about this is the guy we need. But no, I think it's this is probably the first time in a long time that someone's been like I think right now who wants to play Kansas? Like they're just so hot right now, and Jalen Daniels is playing at an incredibly high level, and that wasn't their best performance overall against Duke, but they got the job done. And this is a really critical week for Iowa State. They usually respond pretty well off their losses, and I certainly don't think that Iowa State's going to be, one of like the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the league this year. I think that from everything I've heard, Campbell really likes this team and feels like they've got a chance to be pretty special. But, this is the kind of week where you got to bounce back and kind of show what your ceiling can be as a team. They've got to run the ball better for sure. And they've got to do a good job of responding to all the challenges that Kansas throws at you. I mean, there was one point against Duke where they were running triple option and step back to pass like the old Nebraska days. Like it's awesome to see kind of all the different stuff that they can do in terms of their motion and in all of the ways that they can are creative in getting different guys the ball in that offense. So it's a big challenge for Iowa State this week, and one that they definitely have to win.
I guess the only game we haven't touched on, Max, is from last weekend, Texas Tech and Texas was quite the contest, obviously. There's a great piece that was on The Athletic about Joey McGuire and, what he learned from Dave Aranda as far as going forward on 4th downs. And we obviously saw that come into play. And on the UT side, it's, no Quinn Ewers again and Hudson Card kind of struggling through as best as he can. Just what did you sort of make of the 2 different directions both programs, are going coming out of that game?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a report this morning that Texas had some players-only meetings this week, so that's not good.
Oh,
that's we're right back in it. As much as things change at Texas, they stay the same. I think it's a week when they've got to they've got to really kind of rally and figure some things out here. And it was a hell of a game and one that Texas should not have lost by pretty much any measure. But just a total credit to Joey McGuire and the toughness that they're starting to build with that team and making Jones AT&T Stadium a place that people do not want to play. I think that was a pretty awesome showing there. And you got a hint of, they're not going to run 100 plays every week by any means, but that's certainly the decision-making that Zach Kittley, made in that game to get them back in the game and the way that Donovan Smith executed. Just really impressed by where they're at in year one. And Texas, you have to call this game a must-win for Texas because if they lose to West Virginia, like there's a pretty, you got OU next week. Like you're kind of staring at 2-4 at that point.
Yeah, and because of this conference right now, because there's so much we don't know yet, but it looks like everyone's pretty good, or at least good. that, yeah, you could fall in that trench and never get out of it.
Well, I think they kind of had a built-in mulligan like I was talking about, but West Virginia would be inexcusable. It's like one thing if you lose a game without Ewers or whatever, but like you lose to West Virginia at home, then that's suddenly not good at all for Sark.
Yeah, then it gets pretty dysfunctional here the rest of the way, and that's what Steve Sarkisian has to. I mean, he's obviously, by landing Arch Manning and the recruiting they're doing right now, he has bought himself some patience from people. But as you guys know, we always see from Texas, you lose a couple games and people turn on you pretty quick.
No matter.
It's just it doesn't matter what you got lined up here next year. They're always in win now mode here in Texas.
You, as a guy that you are a Nebraska guy like I am, and I said I would not bring them up anymore, and we shouldn't, but we accidentally did.
Yeah, right.
But you see from where you are the discussion about some of the candidates, and I get a kick out of the fact, yet again, there was some smoldering earlier about Dave Aranda, which you and I both, that's not happening.
A lot of Dave Aranda talk around here this week, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. There's a lot of it.
Yeah, and your thoughts, they don't quite understand him or the match here, do they, the Huskers fans?
No, I don't know that frankly, I don't probably think that Nebraska folks around here kind of understand where Baylor's at and how much Baylor has changed. And just the situation that Dave Aranda has right now, not just with Mac Rhodes and Linda Livingstone, but also where Baylor's the investment level in football and athletics and what the future of the conference looks like. I mean, why would you walk? I mean, there's always great jobs that open up, and Dave Aranda, because of his success, will probably always be on these lists. But, Baylor's couldn't be better positioned for the future right now when you think about a conference where Baylor could win a lot of Big 12 titles when Texas and Oklahoma are gone, and it could go to a lot of 12-team playoffs in the future. So, I think that probably Nebraska's going to throw a lot of money out there, but I don't think that Baylor's going to get outbid by anybody for Dave Aranda with the way things are set up right now. And I don't know that people around here appreciate that. What I always kind of say to it is like, yeah, Nebraska would be lucky to have Dave Aranda, but I don't think you really, if we're talking about realistic candidates here, I'm sure Trev Alberts would love to talk to him, but I really can't see that happen.
Max, I've said this for a long time. I think Baylor is the biggest beneficiary to conference realignment in the Big 12 on the field than anybody, just based on the fact that teams that and maybe we'll see it in the future, but if you take out A&M and Nebraska from the Big 12, those are two teams that they barely beat when they're in there. That's 2 games every year you're not going to lose. And then you take out Texas and Oklahoma, teams that they've turned the tide on in these last 10 years, but also teams that are tough and bringing some new ones that you don't know each other yet. I think they've benefited more than anybody.
I agree. And it's like when you think about that day, let's say it's 24 or whatever it is that those two are gone, like you're not sitting around saying like, man, maybe someday if Baylor can recruit at a top 10 level, they can win the Big 12. Like, no, the way that Baylor's recruiting right now, you can win the Big 12 a lot of times in a 5-year or 10-year span in this Big 12 as it will be, comprised in the future here. I mean, I just think you're going to have a talent advantage over a lot of teams in that new conference. As much as, there's not a bunch of programs that are recruiting at a top 25 level in that new Big 12, Baylor's access to talent and just the caliber of the roster, I think is going to be as good or better than anybody. And so, I think it's pretty good. I mean, like I said, it's a compliment to Dave Aranda, and that's always going to happen. I think that, like LSU would have been, crazy not to call him. I don't know why they didn't, last year. Like, I think it's, but he's going to get lots of calls for these jobs. And I'm sure just based on my conversations with him in the past, like he's looking for a very specific thing. And right now he's got it at Baylor. Yeah.
Nebraska's got a lot of money. He's going to have more, but he doesn't seem like a money whip guy. And I think the expanded playoff really changes kind of that as well. If that wasn't in play, I still feel good about Aranda here, but I think that certainly helps, conferences like the Big 12 in a major.
But it's like Nebraska was calling Dave Aranda and saying, we can pay you $7 million a year. Like, I don't really see how that would be a problem for Baylor to match that. You know what I mean?
No.
I just can't really see it.
And we really don't know if that
might be a pay cut
what he's making right now. Because hey, Max,
right. Who knows?
One more, Max. So I love talking Big 12, but as far as the ranked games this weekend, kind of the ranked on ranked, we were talking about this a second ago. You got Kentucky and Ole Miss coming up this weekend. Alabama, Arkansas, Wake, and Florida State, and NC State, Clemson. Of those 4 games, which one's the most intriguing to you?
Yeah, I think the Clemson game's pretty exciting. I certainly was in the camp of being skeptical that they could be a playoff team this year if they kept rolling with DJ, and certainly he's proved a lot of people wrong in terms of how he started, and I think he pretty impressive last week in that shootout with Wake Forest, and NC State is a team that just brings everybody back on defense, and I think is going to have a lot of great answers for the Clemson offense. So can Clemson take that step and go win that game at home and, really kind of solidify the perception of them as a top 4 team? I think it's a huge opportunity in back-to-back weeks here for them. And, I think we'll be talking about Dabo Swinney's team a lot differently if they find a way to win this in impressive fashion.
Thank you, buddy. Give us a lot of time, and
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
take it. We appreciate it. Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer.